Okay. Well, everyone, welcome tonight to Texas Conservatives. We're doing this training with Brandon from Daniel Nation. I know y'all all know him, but he's going to be training us on how to go to Austin this next year. He's going to talk to us about laws, how they're written, and how we can best serve our representatives. And let's see, the only thing I want to announce on this call is that our next meeting is going to be in person on Tuesday night, the 19th of November at Spring Creek Barbecue. We'll be sending out announcements about it, but that night we're going to have a lot of things put together on the trips. Some people are going by bus, some people are staying down there, but we will have that semi-organized by the 19th of November. So Brandon, the floor is yours, and just share with us whatever God has put on your heart so that we will be informed.
Okay, well, hey guys, welcome to our Texas Conservatives Zoom call. Can I just get a show of hands quickly, or you can throw it in the chat? Who has been to Austin with us in the last session? Okay, cool. Got some hands going up, a lot of hands. Okay, good. Who has not gone with us in the last session? Okay, good. We got some new folks. That's great. Well, welcome to Texas Conservatives. Very glad to have you on the call tonight. For those of you that are new to the PAC, our PAC is 4 years old now. Originally started in 2020 with getting Alan West elected as the state chairman for the Republican Party of Texas. And then that year we mobilized to help President Trump get elected in Denton County, Collin County, and Tarrant County, and worked to raise $100,000 for that race, and ran 52 candidates, Republican candidates, on that ticket that year, and we saw 94% of our candidates win their races in the November 2020 general election. So that's how we became a PAC. That's our history. I served as the chairman for the first 3 years and stepped down at the end of last year in order to start my education company, which is Daniel Nation. We're a public benefit corporation that educates citizens on their First Amendment rights and how to exercise those rights through grassroots activism and lobbying for legislation. And so the new chairman is my mom, Kathy Burden, who you just heard from. She chairs Texas Conservatives now. And we do have some of our board members on the call. Brian Loftus, our treasurer, is on the call. Michelle Travis is on the call tonight. And there may be others joining the call from the board as well. We are recording this, so we will have this Zoom available for replay after we are done tonight. And so we want to talk about basically grassroots activism, and we're going to frame that around going to Austin in the 89th legislative session in January. So I'm going to talk about that, and then there'll be a Q&A time at the end for you to ask questions. But feel free to chat your questions in the chat menu if you want to ask questions as we go along. That would be perfectly fine, and I'll try to answer those as we go. So let me go ahead and start off by talking about areas where the grassroots make the greatest impact. The grassroots movement is absolutely taking over Texas, has really taken it over in the last 10 years. Ever since the rise of the Tea Party, when Obama became president, the grassroots have just absolutely mobilized and taken over basically every facet of Texas politics. I would say we have infiltrated every group, every PAC, every Republican Party function, from the state convention down to the CECs and the precinct chairs. Donald Trump was the greatest gift that the grassroots movement has ever had. Because of him, more and more people are more involved today than have ever been involved in the political process. And that's probably why a lot of us are on this call tonight, is because President Trump and others, before President Trump, have really created a groundswell of grassroots activism, not just in Texas, but around the whole country. But I would say is leading the way as far as activism goes. And you can see that with the impact that we made in the 88th legislature last year. We took 12 bus trips to the Capitol during the session. 600 people went to the Capitol on those buses, and we were able to 17 pro-conservative bills passed into state law, 7 of which protected Texas kids from sexualization in public schools. So those are some pretty phenomenal results considering the speaker that we had for the Texas House and how awful Dade Phelan is. So it just goes to show you the impact of grassroots mobilizing and organization. And so that's what Texas Conservatives is Texas Conservatives is a PAC that organizes and mobilizes grassroots activities in the legislature. And we are ripping up for the 89th session. So let me start off by just talking about the areas where grassroots make the greatest impact. Number one, we make the greatest impact by primarying the rhinos out of office and supporting solid grassroots candidates. You're going to hear a little bit about our results in our primary this year and how successful the grassroots was in getting rid of the rhinos from the last session. But that's one of the greatest impacts we're making in the state of Texas is getting more conservative legislators elected into our Texas legislature, which makes an impact on the laws that get passed and the policies that are created. Number two, by forming PACs to raise money that are used for grassroots efforts. I've never seen more PACs formed in my entire life than I have the last 4 to 5 years. There's a PAC on every corner. It's almost like churches. There's a church on every corner, and there's now a PAC on every corner. Everywhere you turn, there's a new Republican PAC, conservative PAC, grassroots PAC, Texans for Liberty PAC, Constitutional Texans PAC, name it. They're just like coming out of the woodwork, which is great because PACs raise money to support issues, to support candidates, to support policy, and to help shape the future of Texas politics. Number three, by becoming precinct chairs and setting policy for the county executive committees. One of the greatest impacts that we have made as a PAC is getting precinct chairs elected to the Republican Party and seeing the precinct chairs become a part of the fabric at the county level, which shapes the policies that go from these, and that's super important. By attending CEC meetings and weighing in on important decisions. Speaking out at CEC meetings, speaking your mind, your opinion, getting on committees at the CEC level that shape everything from candidate selection committee to creating the rules and standing rules committee, all the way to censuring bad Republican lawmakers that need to be censured. All of that's happening at the county level by grassroots activists. By attending state convention and setting up our state platform and our legislative priorities for the next legislative session. Huge function of the grassroots. Our convention this year saw 9,000 delegates across the state of Texas. And, you know, we came out with a solid platform and a solid set of legislative priorities for the 89th session. A lot of those 9,000 people are from the grassroots, like you and me. By attending the national convention and nominating our president. That's one of the most important functions of the grassroots is making sure that we get somebody like Donald Trump as our nominee for our party. That's a huge function of what the grassroots does. By serving on committees at the county, state, and national level that shape policy for the party, anywhere from being an SREC, which is a state Republican executive committee person, all the way down to being House district chairs, and those that help at the House district level, serving on those important committees across the state. All of that is shaping the direction for the state. And then by block walking, poll greeting, and letting voters know who the most conservative candidates are. Voters don't know who the most conservative Republicans are in the races. And the grassroots are the ones that educate and inform the voters by block walking and poll greeting. So those are ways that we shape Texas politics. By registering voters in upcoming elections, that's another huge component of what grassroots do. There's so many people moving into Texas that they need to get registered to vote. You got to be registered 30 days before the election takes place. So that would be October 5th for this election coming up. So doing voter drives at churches, voter drives at college campuses, registering voters in your own precinct by knocking on doors when people move into your neighborhood and getting them registered to vote, is all very important functions of the grassroots. By supporting local candidates as well as county, statewide, and national candidates. Supporting your school board races and your city council races are just as important, if not more important, than supporting the statewide and federal races, because your school board set your tax rate. Your city council sets your tax rate, and that affects property taxes. So that's huge. Your school board sets your policy for the ISD, and what the policies are going to be for educating the kids. So that's also important. By becoming election judges and poll watchers to ensure honest and fair elections. I think right now that's one of the most important functions of the grassroots, is making sure that we get an honest and fair election in November. The grassroots are making major inroads with lobbying for getting rid of voting machines and going back to hand counted, hand marked paper ballots so that we can stop the cheating and the steal. And limiting early voting to only 1 or 2 days, limiting the amount of mail-in ballots that are going out to voters, cleaning up the voter rolls. There's a lot of grassroots people that I know that have been working for 2 years to clean up Texas's voter rolls. We have over 2 million people on our voter rolls that need to be purged right now in Texas. Governor Abbott just purged 1 million records 2 weeks ago. And so that's huge. That's 50% of our voter rolls have been purged in our state, but we've got another million records to be purged. Grassroots are a huge part of cleaning up the election system. And then the last thing is, by participating in the state legislature through, number one, filling out the House gallery during important votes. The impact that we made in the 88 session, whenever 500 of us would show up in the red Ban Democrat Chairs t-shirts or the Save Texas Kids t-shirts, and filled out the gallery when we were debating those important issues, made a huge impact. I just interviewed Dr. Tom Oliverson on my podcast, which will air a week from Monday night. And he was saying that on the days that he had to, get SB 14, the gender mod bill, passed, when he looked up in the gallery and saw hundreds of us in the red shirts, it gave them confidence to not back down from that issue. So one of the most important functions that we have is showing up when it counts. When it really makes a difference, we show up, because traditionally the lawmakers hear from the lobbyists or they hear from the opposition, but they don't hear from the grassroots enough. And that's what Texas conservatives did last year that made the impact in the legislature and got us a lot of recognition, is we were bringing the buses and people were showing up in mass. And it made a huge difference. Number two, our weekly presence in the Capitol. It's that repetition of going every week, not just going one time during the session, but every week we've got a group of people that are going down to the Capitol. That's what makes the impact. When we visit lawmakers' offices, especially constituent visits, the greatest impact that we make is when we visit with lawmakers and speak our mind, especially when we're constituents from our own district, meeting with our House District Rep and our state senator. That makes the greatest amount of impact because that's from our district and it carries the greatest amount of weight. Testifying in committee hearings or registering our opinion on proposed bills makes a huge difference. When they have a bill in committee, they may get thousands of comments on that bill. Many times, these are comments that are not in our favor. They're in the opposition's favor. And so they need to equally hear our testimony from our position as the grassroots so that they know what our position is on those bills. They listen to our testimony. And even when you go online and fill out your position through the online forms and register your position on a bill, it carries just as much weight as testifying in person in the committee hearing. Number five is phone calls and emails. make a massive difference. We burned the phone lines down last year on SB 14, and we burned the phone lines down on HB 900, which was the Reader Act to get the pornography out of public school libraries. When that bill got stuck in the Senate with Angela Paxton, we burned the phone lines to Dan Patrick's office. I mean, I think we made I can't remember how many hundreds of thousands of phone calls the grassroots of Texas made, but it overloaded the switchboard at the lieutenant governor's office. And we told Dan Patrick, you will get this bill passed or you will not be lieutenant governor. And they got it passed. And it absolutely shifted, the momentum for the bill. That's what you call influence. That's what you call power. And you got to understand the grassroots, we're the biggest lobby group in the state of Texas. We are bigger than the realtors. We're bigger than the lawyers. We're bigger than the casinos. We are bigger than any other sector because we, the people, there's more of us than any other paid lobby group in the state. We may be volunteer, but we're the largest lobby in the state. So when we unify around issues and make our voices heard, they have to listen to us. They can't turn a deaf ear because they know that without our vote, they're not going back to Austin. So we're huge. And then lastly, number 6 is when we gather and pray. We work a lot with the prayer warriors in Austin. And, last year on our buses, we were not just grassroots lobbying during the day, but we were praying in the Capitol with Representative Steve Toth on Tuesday nights for prayer and worship. And those nights of prayer, we were praying about the gender mod bill. We were praying about the Reader Act. We were praying about those important bills that protected Texas kids. And I'll tell you, I wrote about it in my book, Daniel Nation, when Christians take a stand in civil government. But I can tell you those prayers made the biggest impact of all in the legislature. And so you can't, take out the spiritual component of what we do as grassroots. So let's move into what are our priorities for next session. I want to go over the 8 or 9 priorities that we passed at the state convention, and then I want to talk about some other priorities. Number 1, border enforcement. The border issue has become the number 1 national issue in the presidential race. Now, it was not that way 4 years ago, even though Trump campaigned on the border as being one of his priorities. Among voters, it was not the foremost issue in voters' minds. But now, because of the invasion, and we can't even call it an invasion now, we got to call it an occupation. We're beyond invasion now. We are occupied by foreign people, by foreign countries. We are occupied by Haitians, by South Americans, by Russians, Chinese, you name it. They have all come across the southern border, and they're not all bad. But I guarantee you, there are some bad folks, some bad hombres, the fentanyl pushers and the gang members, this new gang from Venezuela that is taking these apartment complexes over in Dallas and Colorado. They came through an open border. And now that our governor has shipped these illegals to other states, now other states are like, wait. We got a problem at the border. We don't want this. So now the border has become the number 1 issue for the whole nation. So if I guarantee you there's going to be border reform coming out of the 89th session. It's going to be one of the hottest tickets that we're going to have. Just so you know, in the last session, they did nothing substantial to fix the border crisis. Although we lobbied for it and pushed for it, the legislature did nothing to fix the border issue. So this session, they're going to have to be forced to do something to fix the border crisis. And so that's going to be hot this session. Securing Texas elections was at the top of the priorities last session, but nothing got done. The only thing that we did was we got Texas out of the ERIC system, which was good, but we didn't replace it with an alternative system. So as of right now, we don't have a fix with the Secretary of State. The Attorney General still has no power to intervene in election fraud because the legislature stripped him of his power to deal with any form of fraud. So we're basically still powerless when it comes to secure elections. The only thing we can do is the grassroots is to, become poll watchers and election judges and try to patrol our own precincts and call out any cheating that we find. That's the most we can do right now. I mean, there's not a whole lot we can do without reform, and elections at the top of the list for the next session. So we are going to have to fix that problem. Stop sexualizing Texas kids made the cut again with the Republican Party of Texas. We are going to be working next year in the session on repealing affirmative defenses in the Texas Penal Code and redefining harmful materials to remove loopholes provided by the modified Miller test. So even though we've got stronger legislation now for protecting Texas kids from sexualization, there are these affirmative defenses in the penal code that is still allowing kids to be sexualized in the name of education. So in the public education system, kids are still being educated because they're protected by affirmative defenses in the penal code until we that out of the penal code and reverse some of the Kinsey decision from 1973. We're going to be stuck with kids still being preyed upon in school. So we're still pushing for that in the next session. No Democrat chairs is on the list, and I'm going to be talking about that tonight. Our very first bus trip is going to be January 14th to ban Democrat chairs. And we did that last year on January 12th. We went down with 1,000 people on the first week of the legislature. We wore our red Ban Democrat Chairs t-shirts. And fortunately, Dave Phelan moved the selection date one day ahead of us arriving and appointed the Democrat chairs before we could get there, knowing that we were coming. Well, we're coming again. We're coming back again. And we're going on the first day of the session this time. So our presence is going to be known by everybody on the first day. So that's back on the docket. Ban taxpayer-funded lobbying made the cut this year. That was being floated around the legislature last year, but it was not on the top of the RPT priorities. It didn't make the top 10 list. This year it did. It's actually number 5. And so that is not allowing municipalities to use tax dollars to lobby against the grassroots with our own tax dollars. That should not be legal, that they can take our money to lobby against what we want as the citizens who live in our cities. So we're going to push hard for that. The next one is securing the electric grid. That was on the priorities. It didn't make the top 10 with the RPT, but it was something that Texas conservatives pushed for last year with Bob Hall. Unfortunately, that legislation didn't go anywhere. And I just want to say our electric grid is as vulnerable today as it was during Snowmageddon. We have basically done nothing to fix the grid. Instead, we have kicked off some board members from ERCOT, and we did change the rules that the ERCOT board members had to live in the state of Texas, because before they lived out of state. Now they have to live in the state. That's all we did. That's not meaningful change. That's not meaningful reform. And so we've got to secure the electric grid. We're still vulnerable to Chinese viruses, malware that have been planted within the system of our electric grid. I believe there's a huge Trojan horse waiting to happen. I'm praying it doesn't happen during early voting or the election to bring down our election centers where we cannot vote in November, because the Chinese could do that. They could kill the grid with their Trojan horse. So we've got to fix the grid. We got to kick the Chinese technology and hackers and malware out of our systems that run our electricity. Another one that made it on the list this year, which is great, is Texas is not for sale. This did not make it on the list of priorities last year, but it made it this year. This is the Chinese Communist Party buying up Texas land. And if you're not aware of this issue, the Chinese Communist Party own most of their land investments are in the state of Texas. Even though they do have land in other states like Wyoming, the largest land holdings for the CCP is our state. And their land holdings are next to military bases, they're next to agriculture, they're next to windmill farms. They're next to areas of critical infrastructure for our state. And there's a reason why. And we need to absolutely create a state law preventing the CCP from owning Texas land like Governor Huckabee Sanders did in Arkansas. And she took the land holdings away from the CCP in Arkansas, and they can't own land in Arkansas. Texas needs to follow suit. And just so you know, Dade Phelan is in favor of foreign land holdings by the CCP. He supports it. That's another reason why Dade Phelan cannot become speaker in January. He's got to go. And then lastly is ending federal overreach. There's a lot of people that are in favor of kicking the federal government's overreach out of our state, protecting the 10th Amendment, states' rights, and Texas having more sovereignty. So that made the top list of priorities as well. Now let's talk about other priorities that did not make the RPT cut, but I believe are going to come back in the 89th session. Number one is school choice. Whether you're in favor or against it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's coming back in the legislature. Governor Abbott wants it. Dan Patrick wants it. Even Tom Oliverson wants it. And so we're going to get some form of school choice, whether that's vouchers or having the property tax exemption on your homestead, which I'm in favor of. That's Cynthia Dunbar's plan. I'm big time in favor of the exemption off our property taxes. But one way or another, we're going to have school choice. So we're going to have to really lobby hard to get a good version of it passed. Everybody's afraid of government strings attached to private schools, parochial schools, religious schools, and homeschool. We're a homeschool family too, and I can tell you that we don't want any government strings attached to homeschool education. But my thought is, if the governor is going to push this, then let's try to get the best version of it we can get. Let's get the best version that we can possibly get. So we need to really be aware of school choice. Number two, I think we're going to get transactional gold this session. It didn't make the cut at the party convention, but Kevin Freeman with Economic War Room, the author of Pirates Money, he's a huge proponent of this. I'm a big proponent of transactional gold. I don't think the dollar is going to be sustainable as we continue to add on trillions of dollars of debt, as our dollar continues to be devalued. I don't think that we need to be on that monetary system if we can help it. And the Constitution says that states can have gold bullion, precious metals, as the state currency. It's written in the Constitution. We have the right as a state to have gold and silver as our state currency. So I think that as a hedge against inflation and against fiat currency, and an ability to sovereignly run our state, if, for instance, the dollar does collapse, we should be able to have transactional gold, and we're going to push for that. And then there's Dan Patrick put out his 57 stated priorities. I'm not going to go through these 57 priorities, but you can find those online if you want to do your own research. But just to briefly skim over some of these other priorities we're going to see come out of the Senate, you're going to see housing affordability addressed. Housing is unaffordable for especially millennials, first-time home buyers, even move-up buyers are stalling out in the market. Housing affordability is out of control. Property tax relief is out of control because the housing market is out of control, driving house prices up. Reduction of regulatory barriers and strengthening property rights, addressing the rising cost of insurance. Dan Patrick wants to do something about insurance, which is out of control right now. It's unbelievable what we're paying for auto and home insurance. Criminal justice reform, fighting anti-Semitism on college campuses is on Dan Patrick's radar. So that's interesting. Studying the impact of social media use on children and reviewing current mechanisms in place to protect minors online is on the radar. Studying the impact of ESG, which stands for Environmental and Social Governance on state pensions. Now, we lobbied against ESG in the legislature last year as Texas conservatives. Now, the RPT did not lobby for that, but Texas conservatives, the 600 of us that went down, we lobbied against ESG. There were a couple of bills that were presented, a couple of committee hearings about it, but nothing really got passed in regards to that. But it is becoming more of an issue as we're moving towards globalism. And so Dan Patrick wants us to look into the impact of that on state pensions. Here's one that's on the radar: AI development and utilization in Texas, and the impact that AI would have on Texas's economy is being reviewed by the Texas Senate. AI is a growing trend right now in every sector of society, and they want to study how that's going to impact our jobs, our job market, which impacts the economy. They're looking into that. Three more: banning Delta 8 and Delta 9 cannabis derived intoxicating products in Texas, especially stopping retailers who market these products to children. Dan Patrick is looking into cannabis marketing towards minors and cannabis sales at the 8 and 9 level that are more intoxicating with the THC levels. So that's on the radar. The next to last is evaluating Biden's plan to transition us to all electric vehicles and its impact on Texas and the state economy. Um, I don't know what kind of impact the EVs would have, but I can say this: it would probably drain our electric grid and put so much pressure on the electric grid, which is not stable. I don't think it would be good at this point for Texas to go to all EVs. I don't know how we would sustain our electric grid. I think it would just be catastrophic at this point. Unless they fix the grid, I don't think we can do this. And then lastly, evaluate water systems in Texas and identify opportunities for improved coordination and effectiveness. I was at Grassroots America, We the People, with Joanne Fleming a month ago. I was one of the speakers at the Leadership Summit for the state of Texas. And I heard a presentation by one of the folks who works for the Department of Homeland Security. And he was telling us about water in Texas and about how in the future the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization and some of these globalist alphabet agencies are going to try to weaponize water against municipalities that don't want to comply with the new Green Deal and that don't want to cut the carbon emissions, that don't want to force people to get rid of combustion engine automobiles. I mean, if you don't know what's going on with the global powers that be, by 2035, they are pushing for us to basically walk and bicycle or have electric modes of transportation wherever we go to get rid of the combustion engine and take all the rural ag land and federalize it and move all the rural people into urban centers and cluster us so that we can walk and bicycle everywhere we go. This is what they're pushing for, and they're going to weaponize the water system over municipalities to force us to where the water is. So cities that don't cooperate lose their water rights. It's really crazy what's going on with water. Water is going to be one of the biggest weapons being used economically against the United States in the future. And I tell you, if we keep giving our power and our sovereignty away to the UN and the WEF and the WHO and these alphabet organizations, if we keep giving our sovereignty away, we're going to have to basically exit the union as Texas and fight for our republic. We're not going to be a part of the United States at that point. We're going to have to exit out just to live. And it's crazy what they're doing. So anyway, those are the issues that we're going to be looking at in the 89th session, that we're going to be getting behind and at least, checking out the legislation that's being proposed. So let's talk about the legislative flow of the session. What happens during the session? Well, first of all, in January, the speaker is elected. That will be on January the 14th, the first day of the session. And then immediately following the election of a speaker, the committee chairs are going to be appointed to all of the committees. That basically happens in January. And then right after that happens, they start filing their bills. And between January and February, all the bills that are going to be filed for the session usually get filed. and the cutoff deadline is in March for any bill submissions. So usually in January and February, we are looking at bills that are being filed, and we are basically analyzing the bills, researching the bills, and trying to figure out which bills we need to kill and which bills we need to strengthen or support. And that's kind of our function. So during those months, we probably won't be taking bus trips to the Capitol because there's no actual committee hearings or votes on the floor. But during those months, we're sending emails, making phone calls, and we're talking to our legislators about bills that are being drafted. And we're asking lawmakers to sign on to bills, to co-author bills, or to support, or even to decline or go against bills. That's kind of our function. Then in March is really where the legislature heats up, and it's where the committee hearings begin. And that's when we go down and spend those long nights at the Capitol where we're up until 12 o'clock midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., waiting for hours on end to testify in committees. Doing the important work of committee work. Bills live and die based on committees. This is probably the most important function of what we do, is letting committees know whether we support or oppose a bill. And bills really do get shaped, they get amended and modified during this process. And it's really important that we show up in March. And then April and May is really when the bills come to the floor for a vote. And our function during the months of April and May are really doing office visits and letting our lawmakers know which bills we want them to support, which bills have made it out of committee. It's when we lobby the calendars committees, and this is where bills get stuck in calendars to die and don't make it out of calendars. And this is when we go down there and fill out the green slips or the red slips in the calendars committee offices, telling the committee members that we want this bill voted out of calendars or we want this bill not to be voted out of calendars. And then telling our lawmakers that once the bills come to the floor, how we want them to vote on those bills. And so really the office visits become huge during the months of April and May. So that's kind of the schedule of what we do during the session. Let's talk about the bus trips now. So our bus trips generally are once a week. We try to take a bus to the Capitol. We try to go down usually on Tuesdays. That tends to be the best day for people to go. And our trips are generally 1 day down and back. Depending on what part of the state you're coming from, you may be leaving at 4 a.m. or you may be leaving at 8 a.m., depending on where you're coming from. Some people like to come on their own, or they like to carpool and meet us there, and that's fine. We generally try to get to the Capitol around 8:30 a.m. or 9 o'clock in the morning so that we can get to those important committee hearings or get onto the into the gallery before the votes are taken. And when we go, we generally lobby during the morning hours and do our office visits in the morning. And then in the afternoons, a lot of times we will hold, some type of a presentation. A lot of times we may do something like last year, we did Gender Modification Day, where we heard from gender modification survivors who had transitioned back to their birth sex. And we would go through the Capitol during the day and invite the lawmakers to come to our presentation in the afternoon to come hear why we wanted SB 14 to be passed. Things like that. Or with election integrity, we went down on January 24th last year and we had a hearing with a cyber committee, a panel of cyber experts who showed the lawmakers how to hack into a voting machine using a built-in phone Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth connection or using a thumb drive. And our cyber experts showed the lawmakers how to hack the voting machines. So we'll go in and we'll do presentations like that to get the lawmakers' attention, and that'll be in the afternoon normally. Sometimes we do press conferences in the afternoon. We will probably do a press conference on January the 14th when we go in the afternoon to talk about the new speaker and the banning of Democrat chairs. And we usually do those on the Capitol steps. Sometimes we have rallies at the Capitol, depending on what the issue is. And then sometimes we do a late bus where we go later in the day and we stay for Tuesday night for the prayer meeting with Steve Toth. And we do the prayer meeting from 6 to 8:30 and get on the bus and come home after midnight. And so we did that last year on one of our buses, and that was very successful. So that's kind of what the buses do. And the vision this year for the bus trips is that every quadrant of Texas will come one time to the Capitol. So last year, most of the buses came from the Dallas area. The main counties that came were Denton County and Collin County, Wise County, Tarrant County, McLennan County, Parker County. Those were some of the main counties that were showing up on the buses. This year, I'm actually working directly with the Republican Party of Texas. I am actually on the subcommittee for banning Democrat chairs officially as a party official in an official capacity, working for the party. And so now that I'm working for the party, I'm actually using the party mechanisms to multiply our efforts around the state for bringing buses from more locations. And so now the vision that we have for the buses is that every quadrant of Texas will come 1 week out of the month. So North Texas comes 1 week, South Texas comes 1 week, East Texas comes 1 week, West Texas comes 1 week. We rotate that schedule around every month so that each part of Texas is only required to come 1 week out of the month. So that means you would make 4 trips to the Capitol from your part of Texas during the session. By doing this, we get more grassroots lobbyists to the Capitol. We don't place the burden on any one part of the state to have to show up. And we distribute the grassroots lobbying across the state of Texas. So that's what our vision is for next session. Also, we are wanting a core team of people who will stay at the Capitol during the week. Texas Conservatives is working on providing hotel rooms for those who are willing to stay for 2 to 3 days at the Capitol during the week to lobby for bills, to testify in committees, to do office visits, to do the grassroots, boots on the ground lobbying that's necessary, and to be our eyes and our ears and report back to us what you're seeing and what you're hearing going on in the Capitol. There's a lot of things that go on behind closed doors. And when you're in the Capitol, you hear a lot of talk. And we need that feedback from our grassroots lobbyists. We need to know, what are they talking about behind closed doors? Where do we need to show up next? Where do we need to testify next? Where do we need to apply pressure? All of that is very important. So if you're willing to go and stay for 3 days, we're working on paying for your hotel room so that that part of your trip can be paid for, and you would just provide transportation to get down there. And of course, your food, you'd have to pay for that, but the hotel stay, the PAC would pay for. So we need to know if you're interested in doing that. So if you guys have your computers handy, if you're able to, go out to this website, and I'll post this in the chat as well. Let me post the link here for you guys so you have this as well. I'm putting this in the chat here. Okay, there's the link. danielnation.com/bus trips. And bus trips has a hyphen in it. It's bus hyphen trips. So danielnation.com/bus hyphen trips. And the link's in the chat if you just want to click the link. So this is a Google form that we have created that we would like for you to go and fill out tonight, letting us know if you want to ride on the bus with us. And if you live close enough to the Capitol where you're going to come on your own, go ahead and fill out the form anyway. And in the comment section, just say, I'll be coming on my own. But we want to know who's coming to the Capitol with us. and we want to know what issues you're interested in, and we want to know if you can stay for more than one day. And there's some questions that we want you to answer so that we can begin to create the groups and the schedule for the bus trips. So if you guys can work on that Google form while I'm talking right now, that would be helpful. So the first trip that we're doing is the band Democrat chairs. And I'm going to go ahead and see if I can throw up my, I don't think I pulled my screen up tonight for the little flyer here. Hold on a second. Some of you guys have not seen the flyer that we did here. So let me pull that up for you guys because I'm very proud of it. All right, there we go. And let me share my screen. Share screen. And here we go. All right, there it is. Here comes the cavalry. January 14, 2025, Daniel Nation and Texas Conservatives presents Capitol Ride 2025. Unite with conservatives at the Texas State Capitol on January 14th, Texas House Speaker. And as you can see, there's those awesome buses that we brought last year headed towards the state capitol. And here's all the horse soldiers riding in to save the day. I know I'm using some creative imagination here, but last year the theme was Here Comes the Convoy, and I wanted to do something similar this year, so I decided to do Here Comes the Cavalry. That's our theme. So pretty cool. I'm proud of the artwork. I think my guy did a pretty good job. But that's what we're going to be focusing on is getting the cavalry to the Capitol. Our goal is to get 1,000 people to the Capitol on January 14th. We did have 1,000 people come last time on January the 12th. We want to do it again. We will all be wearing our red band Democrat chairs t-shirts. You can get from the same lady who created them last time. There is a link that I will be emailing you if you fill out my Google form. I'll have your email and I'll be sending out the link for you to purchase your t-shirts. If you have your old t-shirt, you can wear it. It's the same t-shirt as last year. Band Democrat chairs. So wear the old shirt. And we're hoping to bring 5 buses from these areas, Collin County, Denton County, Wise County, Tarrant County, McLennan County, Smith County, Harris County, Orange County, Amarillo, and West Texas are the areas that we're looking at currently for bringing in the buses for this particular trip. We are hoping to have pickup points along the way based on where people live in the state so we can make pickups as we go to the Capitol. But we have to cluster our pickups in large areas where we can pick up at least 10 to 12 people at a time as we go onto the Capitol. And we are working to raise funds. So one of my questions on the Google form is if you would like to donate towards the trip, your donations will help offset the cost of our bus tickets. We're hoping to get the tickets to $25 a head to get very affordable for people to go. Last year we were able to get a donor that gave us $15,000 that paid for 6 buses. And we used that money in April and May to take some trips to the Capitol where people were able to go for very little money. And so this year, I can't give away my sources or the Republican Party of Texas will fire me, but the RPT has very big sources that give a lot of money to the party, and they are, for the first time, dipping into those resources to raise money to pay for the buses because they saw our success last year and they saw that we were successful. So now the party wants to do this as a party. This is huge. This is huge. The party now is doing it. I mean, we've created a trend. We have created a movement in the state of Texas. I mean, this is so phenomenal what Texas Conservatives has done. Now the party wants to do this. So they're going to raise, we're hoping to raise around $20,000 to $25,000 just for the January 14th trip alone. And with that money, we will be able to pay for those buses and reduce the cost of the tickets. And then if there's money left over, the party hopes to pay for some other trips to the Capitol with that money. So we're working that. Quickly here, I need to wrap up, but let's just quickly, we're getting into Q&A time. Let's just quickly talk about the speaker selection. So there's the speaker selection for the 89th session has turned into a six-way race for the speakership. Tom Oliverson jumped into the race first and has been campaigning the longest. But some of you guys might have seen the news recently that they have now coalesced behind David Cook. And the reason why they have done this is because if they did not select somebody last Friday, if they were not able to get the grassroots lawmakers to come up with a vote last Friday, they were going to lose their chances for defeating Dave Phelan, because those that were caucusing to get a different speaker, if they did not get somebody soon, they were going to defect and throw their support behind Dave Phelan again. And so they had to pick somebody in order to not lose the race with Dade Phelan, because Dade is working hard and heavy to get back in. So David Cook was the only guy that they could all agree on getting behind. And because they have now thrown their support behind David Cook, Tom Oliverson, Shelby Slauson, Smithy, and the others have dropped out of the race, and they've all thrown their support behind David Cook. So who is David Cook? David Cook is a two-time House representative from Mansfield in Tarrant County. He has committed to appointing only Republicans to committee. He has received 48 votes from the Republican straw poll caucus, but he needs 52 in order to garner the endorsement for the vote on January 14th. So he is 4 votes away. James Frank, Tom Oliverson, Shelby Slauson, and John Smithy, who were the other candidates, have all dropped out of the race, put their support behind Cook. And the Republican caucus is led by Tom Oliverson. So Dr. Oliverson is going to push the caucus, which the caucus vote, hold on a second, I need a drink of water. I've been talking nonstop for 45 minutes. I got to take a drink here. So Dr. Oliverson has pledged to support David Cook. And since he is the head of the Republican caucus, when they meet in December, Dr. Oliverson, as the head of the caucus, is going to push for Cook. And now that David Cook has received the nod, there were some other Republican lawmakers who were not at the meeting last Friday when they took the straw poll that are now going to support David Cook instead of Dade Phelan. So it looks like David Cook has the 52 votes. So he is the front runner, but there will be 2 rounds of voting because you have to get to 76 votes in the House to clinch the nomination on the floor. When we go on January 14th, we're going to be there with our Red Band Democrat Chairs t-shirts on, supporting David Cook because he has pledged to ban the Democrat chairs. And we're going to push for that second round of voting and push that Dade Phelan loses in the first round. Okay. And that David Cook clinches the nomination in the second round. So that's what we're pushing for on January the 14th. Now, let me wrap up by saying this, then I'll take questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Take a breath.
Yeah.
How does that work? Because are there enough Republicans that they can get him in on his own, or do they need Democrats as a part of that to get that 76 votes? And if he goes in saying he's going to ban Democrat chairs and he needs Democrat votes, how's that going to work?
He doesn't need Democrat votes. There's enough Republicans to get to the 76 without the Democrats. And the Democrats, you may have read about this, they're running their own candidate. So the Democrats are not supporting Dade Phelan. They've got their own Democrat that they want to run.
Well, that's good.
So that basically
the second part, and then I'll shut up, is
yeah.
It seems to me that decisions are made before you even get to the time of voting. And we ought to be putting a proactive initiative together right now to start making our voice known to the key people that are important. And we ought to, so first thing, identify who the key people are, the key players that are going to be influencing this, and then get to them immediately so that when they walk in that door in January, they've already been snowballed that, you know, what our feelings are and where we think they need to go, so that there's not even a question in their mind what they're going to do.
Yeah, I totally agree.
That's my comment.
Yeah, that's good, Randy. I totally agree with you. And what we need to do is we need to start making our phone calls to our lawmakers now saying to get behind David Cook, because they're going to caucus in December. And the way the Republican rules work is the person who receives the caucus vote in December has to be the one that they put forward in the public vote in January. That's how the rules work. So, and we're not invited into that private Republican caucus meeting. The public is not invited. We can't go into that meeting. So all we can do is make those phone calls to Dr. Oliverson, who already supports David Cook, but we need to call our lawmakers who are Republicans and say, we want you to support David Cook and not David Phelan for speaker. I think that would be the best thing we can do. So I totally agree. Okay, that's pretty much all I've got for tonight. The next steps are, you've already filled out our questionnaire for the bus trips. Number 2 is we do have a signal group for the 89th session already set up. There's already like 80 people in the group. That's how we communicate. So I encourage y'all to join our signal group, and Anita can send out that link in this post Zoom call wrap up, so you guys can get that email from her. And then make sure you are on the Texas Conservatives mailing list for updates about the session. With that, I will take questions. And anybody chat any questions? Let's see here.
Hey, I got a follow-up one while you're looking.
Okay, go ahead. Yep.
So just kind of in thinking through how we do this, I'm going to throw out a suggestion. Maybe you and Kathy sit down, look at our list of everybody in the group that's active, and then we figure out who these key people are that need to be called, and we just assign, you know, split the group up in a smaller subgroups and assign them to certain people to call. And then so that we make sure, and then check it off. Let's track everybody with a big spreadsheet, and then rotate it. Once one group's called, you know, John Doe and done that, then have a different group called John Doe, and that first group goes and calls a different person. And just somehow we get some kind of coordinated calling thing that we can track, and just make sure everybody takes time to do it.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, Randy. I'm gonna kick that ball into my mom's court, and you guys, if y'all can work on a plan for that, I think that would be a great thing for us to work on between now and December. So good suggestion. Lauren, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, Brandon. I just wanted to say you did an amazing job. I was really excited about everything that you said. I feel like I found the perfect place. I wanted to say something about the Delta 8 for the Senate that you brought up. For those of you who don't know me, I actually live downtown in Austin, Texas. So I'm walking distance to the Capitol. This Delta 8 is really bad. You can go into the gas stations and buy a little thing for $3, and people are literally leaned over like zombies, just like they are in fentanyl. It's a really big problem, and it's nothing like regular marijuana. So I'm definitely excited about that one. But there is a lot of things that you named off that I'm very excited about, and I'm just so happy that I came across your group, and I look forward to working with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. And Lauren is a new precinct chair there in Austin, and is getting really involved in the political process. And in 2026, she wants to run for HD 51. And so we're just excited, Lauren, that you have gotten involved. She got involved because of J6. That was her wake up call. And so we're very happy to have you a part of the group, Lauren. God bless. And thanks for being on this call tonight. Krista, go ahead, ma'am. You're muted. Go ahead, unmute.
There we go. Hey.
Hey, good to see you.
Yes, you too. So I will be at legislation not only with your group, but how can we work together? I've been designated on legislative initiatives for Shepherd's Watch Foundation, and so we have 8 bills written right now, and we'll need some help. I think making some adjustments or wording. On against sex trafficking, making it more difficult for sex traffickers. At this point, you could be trafficking children and not be put on a sex offender registry list. And so Bob Hall has promised to get that bill passed, but we have others we're working on. I want to be a part of what you're continuing to do this next legislative session, but also working with them. How can we combine that and get help from your group in order to make sure that these things are getting pushed through?
So I would probably advise you to work with Kristen Bentley's subcommittee with the RPT, the Protecting Texas Kids from Sexualization.
Yes.
That would be the best subcommittee to work with. And because her committee is going to be reviewing all the bills that are being filed for that issue. And if
Great.
you've got bill proposals that you want to propose for that issue, she can help feed those bills to the right lawmakers to find an author or a co-author for those bills. So you should connect with Kristen Bentley and see if you can work with her subcommittee.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Too late for refunds? That's a joke.
I just have a quick comment.
Yes, Wendy.
I'm new to this group, although I've been following conservative matters for, I guess, years around here. But I am so incredibly impressed at how organized this group is, and Brandon, how knowledgeable you are. So Jan Goria invited me, and I just really appreciate you guys for all of this effort.
Oh, thank you, Wendy. Yeah, thanks for those kind comments. And yeah, we do tend to be organized, because if we're not, when January 14th hits, if you don't have a plan, you're going to be so far behind. You won't know what hit you. So, but thank you for those kind comments. And Jan, thank you for inviting Wendy onto the call tonight. Jan is a great grassroots warrior that's gone down to the Capitol with us and has done a lot in the grassroots movement in Frisco, and has been on our board of directors at Texas Conservatives in the past. And we've loved working with her. So Wendy, welcome aboard. Glad to have you on the call. Okay, guys. Well, it's about 8:04.
Hey,
I try to keep
Hey,
these
Brandon,
calls
one
to about-
last thing.
Yeah, Randy.
Brandon.
Yeah.
One last thing. So I know it's a little bit out left field, but since I'm new to College Station area, if Lauren or anybody knows anybody in the College Station area that I might sync up with and maybe build some synergy down here a little closer to the Capitol, and I want to do that. So I'm just reaching out to anybody if you have any connections or so forth that might help me get started.
Yeah, and Randy, you may want to also post that in the new Signal group for the 89th Grassroots Lobbyist. As people are joining in that Signal, there may be some folks from down that area you can connect with. That's a good spot to post in.
Hey, Brandon,
Okay.
also tell them about True Texas Project has a Brazos County chapter.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Great.
And Brandon,
Yeah.
just once again, on the November 19th, which is a Tuesday night, we have secured the Spring Creek Barbecue in Frisco and Preston. We're going to have a lot of things that y'all have talked about tonight already organized and ready to go, because the first of the year will be right around the corner. So for those that can make that meeting in person, it'll be November the 19th. It's a Tuesday night. We'll send out an ad for it, and it'll be at 6:30. But I think that'll be a night that we're going to wrap up a lot of questions and then give some more directives.
Are you going to live stream that?
Well, it's the 12th. I'm sorry, November the 12th.
No, we couldn't get it on the 12th. We had to move it to the 19th. Yeah,
Okay.
I called them today, and they're already booked. The only time they're open is the third Tuesday night, so I just went ahead and moved it without saying anything. Yep.
Yeah. And are you going to live stream that for those that don't live in Dallas?
Yes, we can, but we would really like for you to be there that night, because I think we're going to nail down a whole bunch of things for the because when January gets here, we're going to have to hit it and go. We're not going to be able to be having a lot of meetings to get everybody organized. So November 19th is a really big night to actually Spring Creek on Preston Road. There behind the mall, the Stonebriar Mall. It's about a block behind the mall. I think it's at the corner of Warren. I believe it's Warren and Preston. There's a Spring Creek barbecue on the corner, and that's where we'll be at 6:30. And we will send out notices to everyone. Brandon will also send out notices. But that's going to be the night that we're going to really kind of finalize everything for starting going forward in January. By then, we're going to know what groups are willing to go down there and stay for 3 days. And we hopefully will have more of our financing in place.
Yeah, by November, we'll know what the cost of the bus tickets are, where the buses are
Yes.
going to be departing from, where the pickup locations are. We'll have all those logistics worked out as the fundraising comes in the month of October. So we'll know more by November. Well, guys, this was fun. This was recorded tonight, so we'll send out the recording link through Texas Conservatives. Please share this video. Let more people know about what we're doing in January and about the Google form on Daniel Nation so that we can get people signed up for these buses and get those seats filled. And really appreciate your time tonight. Thanks for inviting me on to speak. And,
Thank you, Brandon.
we'll see you guys in
Great
November.
job.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Good night.
808, new beginning.